Good evening, everyone. With a quorum present and the posted time having arrived, I'll call the Finance Committee for Tuesday, January 10th, 2023 to order. The first item on our agenda tonight is the minutes of our previous meeting from December 13th of 2022, copies of which are in the packets. Does anyone have any corrections or revisions that they've noted they want to see in the minutes? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Motion from Denny. Is there a second? Second by Martins. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. The minutes are approved. Item number 2 is discussion and possible action regarding an ARPA funding request and related budget modification. We have one tonight, it looks like, from IT for the technology in this room, right? So if we want to walk us through that, and then we can do some ranking and things.
Yep, and similar to last year, it seems like it's such a long time ago since we had a meeting, but we'll get the presentation at this meeting. We'll send you a ranking form. You can rank that, and then before the next meeting, we'll summarize that. So this is just for presentation.
Well, and this project had been presented a couple times before in CIP.
Yes.
But was not funded in those two funding cycles because we had other priority projects. But with that, we do have some materials in the packets, but I see that we have the IT director with us. So Jerry, did you want to come up and walk us through a little bit what the project entails and what its costs look like?
Sure. Good evening. Again,
Welcome.
I'm Jerry Klein. I think I know all of you. This room is, I started 16 years ago. This room was old when I got here. Lisa has heard this presentation from me a couple of times. Yeah, when I started, I was getting a tour of stuff, and our Andy Zenda, who's been with us for a long time, said, yeah, this equipment is all in, this is 16 years ago, remind you. This equipment is all out of date. It's, much of it's not supported. We don't have any of the documentation for it anymore. The people that installed it are out of business. And that was 16 years ago. Fortunately, it's been continuing to run. I point over there because it's actually right behind the flag is most of the gear. What we have done in the last couple of years is put in a new, for those of you that have been to the county board meetings, the assembly room, we built that room out with new modern controls that control the room and can support video calls that are integrated into it. What we're proposing is to replace all the equipment back there, replace your microphones and those buttons that you have with new voting software. Caitlin's write-up that she gave to you is really good because it points out one particular thing that's really easy to see. That it's so poorly integrated or not integrated that when someone's on a video call and we bring them in on that TV right behind Caitlin. Mm-hmm. The gentleman that's back there takes that camera, and rotates it and zooms in on that TV in order to provide that view to the viewing public, which is pretty clunky. The modern way to do that was he'd have multiple video feeds and he'd be able to pick and choose from them and lay things on top of each other. We would keep this TV here. This is perfectly fine. Right behind you, Lisa, I would propose we cut that whole cabinet and to take a big chunk out of it and put a 86-inch TV in there, have a cabinet guy, retrim it out. And that TV would be behind there. Then we would hang two TVs, one here and one here on armatures that'd be pretty close to the ceiling. They would, of course, have to be a lot smaller, so they'd be about, I think they're 54 inches on the quote. And then we'd have to do a little bit of cabinet work up there as well. We would see how there's 3 monitors up in front of Caitlin. There's 2 PCs with 3 monitors right now. That would go down to 1 PC and either 1 monitor or 2, depending on exactly how we configure it. It would greatly improve the ability of the public television people in order to video chat. And one of my main concerns is any day now any of that equipment could just die. And then we'd be kind of out of business until we can put this together. When I've ordered video gear in the past, lately it's been taking a really, really long time. We ordered new video gear for Courtroom 1 and the new hearing room at the courthouse, and it took 7 months to get the equipment. So I think it's important that we get ahead of it.
Okay. What are the costs?
I laid them out in the quote. I think it totaled $140,000. The quote, a relatively recent quote from the vendor, was $125,000. I did not bring a contractor in to go over the construction changes, so I just wild guessed that it was $12,000.
Okay. And so you're requesting ARPA funding for that. So
I think
guess-
there was, with the packet, there was an initial problem because the application is actually an Excel spreadsheet that's multiple worksheets, and when it was converted to the PDF, it only picked up one of
Right.
the sheets, which wasn't a very useful sheet, so.
It was the least useful
It
of the
was the
three.
least
Right,
useful
right.
sheet. I think, Caitlin, you fixed that in the
Yeah,
packet.
I think she fixed it, but you may
And-
have looked at the packet yesterday and you wouldn't have seen
Correct.
all 3 pages of it.
So
Right.
we, Jerry gave us that heads up, so thank you.
So-
But I think Caitlin.
Yeah, I
Given-
happened to look at it this morning and realized this isn't the right stuff.
And I think when we look at our ARPA now with the allocations that we've made to date, I think we're sitting on just under $3 million left, correct?
Yes.
So that, given the amount of this as well, are we convinced that ARPA is the best funding source? I say that only because we're looking at a water rate increase and, public angst over that. And, with that ARPA funding we have left, is there going to be a need to divert at least a majority of that to the granular activated carbon solution? We've talked about maybe putting a pin in some ARPA money before we run out of it, to put some of it towards this water thing. Would we have an alternate fund source? I mean, given the fact, if we finish the year with a surplus, which we should know soon, where we're at for dollars there, or if we have project savings in other areas, as we've finished capital projects off of last year, could we look for those funds as well before we just allocate ARPA? I guess I think we should be cautious with our ARPA because there's not much left.
We definitely could look at alternate funding sources, as you suggested, a one-time transfer out of the surpluses that we will likely have in 2022. Obviously, with it being the beginning of January, we've been focusing on the workday implementation, so I am not equipped to tell you how we are doing on year end at this point. But I could certainly have some more information. So when, if we ranked the application by the next meeting, I could give you an idea of where I think year end is going to shake out at, because I think I would have some time by that time. And really, we were encouraging the departments because of the implementation of Workday to try to pay as many bills in 2022 as possible because of the, switch over at year end. So I think we likely would be able to give you, a reasonable estimate of what that will look like. And so we can include that in the packet, and so then, we can agendize it such that you could find
Consider
yeah,
a
an
variety
alternate-
of sources.
yeah, if you
I
wanted
think
to.
that's got some value, because our discussion in CIP a couple times when we've ranked it is, it's not that we don't understand or appreciate the value of the project, and we also want equipment that works because it makes our life easier also, but with capital spending and with ARPA, we're looking for projects that are of more direct benefit to the public, where they can see and feel the impact, versus things that, make our lives easier here in the chambers. We kind of wanted to hold that to the back burner and see how we finish the year. And if we had project savings and stuff, then we always want to go back to the list and see, well, is there anything else we can pick up and more work that we could get done after the priority items have been out there? Sarah?
So I guess I have two things. One, I did receive comments from residents that they, when they're viewing it on YouTube or on public access, they can't see how people vote just because of the system we have. And I think it would, I think it is forward facing to our residents, because they can actually engage without actually having to be here, and then be aware of what's going on. I guess my other question too is on the ongoing operational expense. It's about $5,000. For contractual services, what contractual services? will
I think
be
what
in the-
we would probably do is put just a couple of key pieces of it under a maintenance agreement for a little while until we make sure that it's all working, and maybe we could drop it at a later date. But I would want to put the room controls, there's two kind of key pieces of the electronics. There's the room controls and then the video gear. I'd want to put those two pieces on a support plan for at least a year.
Okay, committee members, questions for Jerry at all, or comments? Go ahead, Carol.
Not necessarily for Jerry. Thank you for the explanation. And I too see the importance of this. But as far as, I very much share the concern about holding on to the ARPA dollars, because I've heard from quite a number of people that are really concerned about the water rate increase. So, like, if we can at all alleviate any of that, that would be good. Thank you.
Okay. Other thoughts? Go ahead, Doug.
Was this in the most recent CIP rankings, and did we look at
I
it?
believe it was, and it was in a year or two before that as well.
Yep.
It's come in a couple different forms. This year it was definitely in, but I want to say at least a couple times prior to
I
that.
actually think I submitted it 3 times, but it's certainly
Yeah.
2 for sure.
Yeah, it's been, and that was before we had open meetings voting software, so we were looking at a whole scale redo of a number. I think it was even on your radar for us at the same time when the county got theirs, and that's been quite a while already, so. Additional questions or anything? Otherwise, go ahead, Sarah.
So would this incorporate the open meetings into the new buttons?
Yeah, I think what we'd probably do, and I mean, we'd have to talk to you guys about exactly how you want to operate it, but what we did at the county, and I'm not in love with it, there's a few things I'd still like to tweak on their setup, but we switched them over from the voting that they were using. You guys are voting, you have the voting buttons that are integrated to this PC that's over here, which also an interesting story. That was written in a programming language that's about 25 years old. So we've been able to keep it kind of limping along. But what we did with the county was the clerk actually has 2 apps that are up on their screen, basically a public view of what's being discussed. And then what she can do is she can flip onto in this case, the 4 monitors, this one, that one, and these 2, when they're going to vote. So right before people vote, she can switch it and show on all of those monitors and remotely the vote results, and then she flips back to either a camera view or the topic. So there's really kind of 3 feeds, right? So there's the operator in back picking which one of the cameras. By the way, we would keep all these cameras. They're actually fairly new. There's 4 of them in here. And the gear in the back is actually pretty new as well. But that allows you to have the citizens see what are they talking about, who voted for it, and then go back to seeing either people's faces or maybe a PowerPoint presentation, depending on what they need. So it really gives the controller, the person in the back, a lot of capabilities.
Okay. So with that, I guess our plan, if we're all in agreement that we want to at least rank it so that we have it in our sites for ARPA, yet then also consider other funding means at the same time. There's no guarantee that we have to use ARPA, but if we have other money, it would make sense. Is that good with you guys? Go ahead, Carol.
Just a question. So if there is other money, which that's what I would prefer to, so when you said we might know that, like, when did you say?
Before the next meeting, I'll have an
cool.
estimate.
And then, so if we were able to do that, how soon it could maybe?
It would
be
then
at
go
the
to
next-
council, so in the first meeting in February.
Okay.
And actually,
For-
if you selected another funding source, it actually would be slightly easier for us because I don't have to follow the ARPA rules. I just have
Well,
to follow the city procurement rules,
and-
which are slightly different.
Right, and if it's surplus or something, that cash is already here. So then it's just a matter of ordering and waiting, so.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So yeah, if we agree by consensus on that, we don't have to vote on it. We'll just wait for the email with the ranking stuff. Item number 3 is discussion and possible action regarding a sole source request for Wausau PD and Wausau Fire for advanced physical therapy. And you've got some sole source documentation in your packets on that. And we've got Deputy Chief Barnes coming up to talk to you about his request. So welcome.
Good evening. I'm not sure if there's a whole lot of questions. This is coming before you because Mary Ann, doing her job, sent the email that said, hey, Wausau PD and Wausau Fire, where are your sole source requests every year? And we said, what? And she said, yeah, every year. So these are recurring sole sources. They're contractors that we've have a relationship with, that we've utilized, that we're satisfied with. They're budgeted for, and we're just looking for the annual stamp of approval to continue to use them.
So then this gives you continuity with the therapy provider you're already with?
Right,
basically?
it's the same one.
Okay. Committee members, any questions on that? If not, is there a motion to approve the sole source? Motion from Watson, second from Denny. Further discussion? Seeing none?
Can I
Oh, go
bring
ahead.
up one?
For sure.
There's one error on my part. In section number 2, it references 7.5 hours a week. That's 7.5 hours a week per organization, so it's really 15.
15, okay. We'll make that adjustment. Okay, so then with a motion and a second on the floor, members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries. Item number 4 is discussion and possible action regarding a sole source request for crossing guards contract with All City Management Services. This one also is continuing what we've already got in place, correct?
That's correct.
Yep. Anybody have questions on that one at all? If not, we've got a motion from, oh, go ahead,
I got a
Mike, sure.
question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess, let's see, the amount of this, I think it was $160,000 is, and I know the school district pays part of that. Is that the combined cost, or is that just our share of the crossing guards?
$160,000 is the total cost, and then annually, once we compile the total cost, we invoice the school district for 29.75% of that total cost.
Okay, okay.
All right. Go ahead, Doug.
I've got a question generally related to the sole source of these evergreen contracts. How do we manage if we do have say another party that says, I'd like to bid on that? Or do we not run into that when these are so unique, we don't have to worry about it?
Well, the crossing guard situation seems to be, I think, when we went out for proposals on that even, is there maybe only one vendor or two in the country that do that? Or there weren't very many?
As far as I'm aware of, they're the only organization in the country providing this service.
So that makes them unique. The therapy one, we had approved a couple years ago because they had some specialty, well, it's in the documentation, but they'd had some specialty programs, right, on the,
Yeah, and I think it depends on what the sole source is for and what we're contracting. If we look at the previous one you just voted on for the therapy services at the police department and the fire department, one of the things that makes it so important to our organizations is, number one, the quality of the service that's provided and the relationship and trust built between the therapist and our staff. So, like, that relationship and that trust and the effectiveness that they've had is worth something, and I wouldn't be comfortable saying, hey, let's put this out to bid again, because someone might be cheaper. I think we'd probably have a revolt against the chief and myself if we made that recommendation to you.
okay.
But if there's another crossing guard service that can do it cheaper, like, you betcha.
No, I didn't mean to scrutinize this particular purchase. It was just my thought in general. Are we icing people out in the long term? And
Well, and I think that's why they have to document it year by year, and it's our job to decide if that's the case or not.
It
Because-
looks valid.
Right. Obviously, we have the power to send stuff for bids as well, but if there's decent documentation and the case makes sense, then we approve them, so. Okay, so do we have then a motion and a second then to renew this one? Motion by Denny, is there a second? Second by Lukens. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that item carries as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 5 is discussion and possible action regarding urban non-point source construction grant agreement to convert the Strawberry Field Dry Detention Pond to a wet pond. And this actually started in SISM. Engineering was applying for a grant, and I believe this is also helps us with our stormwater compliance. And of course, now we've received the grant, so the recommendation is that we move forward and accept the grant so that that pond could be converted. We have the Public Works Director with us, though, if anyone has questions of him. If not, is there a motion to approve the acceptance of the grant? Motion by Martins, second by Denny. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries as well. Let's see here, that brings us to item 6, which is discussion and possible action on the termination of the airport ground lease with Alan Wolt. These next two items came to us kind of as a little house cleaning item from the airport committee. I believe these hangars the leases have terminated and these hangars have been sold. But yet we didn't get the technical step of terminating the lease. And I think if the airport minutes were the airport minutes attached in the packet? Because I think the airport manager had talked us through some of that. We had the assistant city attorney with us, and I think they had discovered that the official termination had not taken place, but the ownership of the hangar, I believe, had changed hands.
was not.
Okay, they were not in there? There was two of those. I think Alder Dinney and I are both on the airport committee. Was that how you recall it as well, Doug, that they were,
Yes,
So it's more of like housekeeping.
right?
correct.
New owners are already in possession of the hangars. This is just a formality basically now. We don't have the airport manager with us, but if you guys are comfortable acting on it based on that, or, I mean, this obviously isn't necessarily time sensitive. You can hold it till next time if you want the airport minutes to be transcribed and included.
Well, the resolution is in
The
here, right?
resolution is in there, right? So that does spell it out.
Yeah, I think the resolution was fairly straightforward.
Comprehensive
And
enough?
And when
Okay.
when I read the packet, that answered my questions on why we're doing this.
Okay, good. That makes sense, just so there's not confusion. Is there a motion then to terminate the ground lease with Allen Wold? Motion by Dinney, is there a second? Second by Martins. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries. Item 7 is the same deal, discussion and possible action on termination of airport ground lease with Wynn Jones and Associates. Do we have a motion on that one? Motion by Dinney, second by Watson. Further discussion or questions?
I just have a quick question. It
Go
says
ahead.
we already approved it. Is this a different resolution? Or is it like a past one?
No, it has today's.
Oh, it has today's date?
It's just filled in when it
Oh,
comes to
okay.
council.
Oh, okay. Assuming in the affirmative that that's how they'll get it anyway? Okay, I see.
Okay.
All right, so with that, with a motion and a second on the floor, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries as well. Item 8, discussion and possible action on a contract for residential and commercial electrical inspection services between the City of Wausau and the Village of Weston. And you'll see some documentation in your packet that they need some help short-term from us. They're looking to replace some staff, but they've got a gap between, and they'd like to contract with our team in the meantime. Does anyone have any questions for Bill Hebert on that? It looks like the documentation in the packets is pretty good. Sarah?
We've done contract work with other municipalities nearby.
With them and with Schofield, I think. Come on up, Bill.
Good evening.
Hi. So we've done, is this like a continuation of like an agreement we've had with Redmount or Weston? Or,
For Weston specifically, we did, when their inspector back in 17 had a hip replacement, we did a 3-month contract with them as well.
and so the guesstimates of like revenue is sort of accurate, you think? Like, just based on past experience?
Yeah, they only do commercial electrical, so it'll be pretty limited.
And it won't like stretch your department too thin, you think?
Well, I just got informed today my building inspector resigned, but, no, that should be fine. We have several qualified people that can do the inspection.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sounds good. That's good that we can help our neighbors out a little bit when they need it, because someday we might need their help too. So, is there a motion to approve? Motion by Lucan, second by Watson. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries as well. That brings us to the end of our agenda. So I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Watson. Is there a second by Lukens? Members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll stand adjourned, and then Common Council will start in this chamber at 6:30. So we'll have a little break in between. Thanks, everyone.